Morning. We're learning as a schus for Shlema Pilan Chaya Basarach. We're 4 lines from the top of Peches Amid Beis, the 2 dots. Chatzi lug ma'hayim hashamash. What was the use of the chatzi lug? And the Mishnah had said for the Saita or the Taida that they use the chatzi lug shemen. Yasa Rebbe v'kashale chatzi lug lama nimshach. What do we need this chatzi lug for? Isaita v'chichulinu the tricha l'kedushay. If you're saying it's for the chatzi lug of the Saita, the shemen that was used in the Saita was already, the mayim, the May Saita, right? The mayim of the May Saita was mixed with the ashes. Was they use chulin water? Mayim kedoshim sip. It says mayim kedoshim. They had to have taken mayim that was already previously kaddish. They took straight from the kiyar that had already been kaddish. So what do they need to measure it out with a kli that was kaddish? They could have taken a kli that's not a kli shar. We had said before that it's not bakavadik to take something that is already kaddish and put it in a non-kaddish kli. Said that's only something that's kaddish that it's going to be burnt on the mizbeach. The May Saita was going to be used to be Menachos. The Saita did not have that requirement. And if you say the chatzi lug for the taita, lachmei taita v'shchita taita the kachi. We had said before the lachmei taita become a kuddush. They don't become a kuddush with the kli. They become a kuddush when you bring the carbon that goes along with the taita. So it's not dependent on the kli. So it doesn't need a measuring kli. That's a kli sharis. It's kedushas kli sharis. Amalei of Shimon Berebi shebaya machalik chatzi lug shemen l'chol ner v'ner. It was used for the menorah, that they filled up the menorah with a half a lug shemen. Each ner had a half a lug. Amalei ner Yisrael kachai. He called him the ner Yisrael. You are the tak of the light of the Yidden. You're correct that it was used for the menorah. So even though our Mishnah, which was Rebbe, had said from the Taida and the Saita, it's not correct. He's masking that it was really from the menorah. I don't remember ever seeing this before, that a Mishnah brings a pshat, and then the Gemara and Rebbe say that the pshat is different. Probably, maybe there is such thing. It sounds strange that we have a Mishnah from Rebbe, and then in the Gemara we have a Chayza from the Mishnah. We said the Rebbe said there was a different pshat. Rebbe Yechon Rebbe. Ner shekovsa, a ner of the menorah that went out. Nitchen Hashem and Nitchen Hapsila. And it was the middle of the night, and then the menorah was supposed to stay lit through the night, but it went out. And when it went out, the oil that was left behind had gotten a little bit of ash from the wick, or the wick itself was ashy, and it come burnt up. Ketzad oisa. So now it has to be cleaned out. You can't light a dirty ner. Meitiva, you clean it out, and you put in new oil, umadlika, and you light it. You have to clean out whatever leftover oil there is, because it's dirty, and put in fresh oil. Yasser Rav Zeker would come by Shunoisim b'shemen kamidu rishayna kamayshachasher. How much oil do you put in, right? If it was the middle of the night, so that means half of this, maybe there's a quarter of the lug of the half shemen was left. Do you put in a full half lug, or do you only put in however much? It was an hour before dawn. You only put in, a couple of spoons of oil. Amrav Yirmiyah Pshita the kamidu rishayna. You have to put in a full half a lug. If it was the amount that was missing, how do you know how much there was? Maybe you'll take the amount of oil that was left over, you'll measure it, and then you'll subtract that from the original half a lug, and that will tell you how much you have to put. If that was the case, you'd have to have much more precise with measuring. Right, because it could be any amount. It could be a teaspoon. It could be a half a teaspoon. Right, my wife has in her drawer a half a teaspoon measurements. You'd have to have all those, that whole little ring with the little spoons on it for all this precise measurements. Kari Alecha, Allah, so Rebbe was masking to him as well, and he said this is correct. V'hadorcha, which they darshan, the Rashi brings, you could change a hey and a resh to a dalet. So the hey can become a ches, and the resh can become a dalet. So darshan bechidudecha, your sharpness. Tzlach should have atzlacha, rechav, you should ride high. Al devar emes v'anova said, because you are saying the truth with humility and tzidkus. Itmanami, Amar Abavo, Amar Rabbi Yochanan, Amila, Amar Abba, Amar Reb Chanina, Amar Rebbe. Ner shekovsa, when the light of a ner went out, Nitchin Hashem and Nitchin Apsila, and it got dirty, either the Shem got dirty or the wick got dirty. Kate said, Isa, what should you do? Meitiv and Isa Hashem and Kamida Rishayno Madlika. This is they said, these Mandamim said the same conclusion that we had just said, that you replace it with the full measure of the oil. You don't measure out the precise amount that's missing. Amar v'nebrei Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Sheshes, Ner shebemigdash shel prokim hav. The ner in the migdash was shel prokim, which we've had this several times throughout Shas, and I always touch shel prokim. We had this like in Shabbos, I think. Shel prokim to mean that it was taken apart, it was made up out of pieces. But Rashi says that's not the case. In the Gemara over here, will be very clear that's not the case. So Rashi says, Shel prokim in the Ksav Yad, Shel chulyus, lo shel chulyus mamish. It was made up of sections, but not of totally different sections. Sheyuchel aparkon u'salkan min ha'menayra, that you could take it apart. Ela sheyachol l'kayfa lamata u'lezoikva b'mkayma. Ubelaz pliritz. It was collapsible. It could be the piece. It was jointed that you could pull down. Really, what we're going to see is that you could take the neiris, the part that contained the oil. Right, the neiris are not like our neiris made out of glass. They were made out of metal. There was no glass bowls. The neiris could be pointed down, as we'll see, for cleaning. You wanted to clean the menorah. You didn't take the whole menorah, put it in a sink. You took the neiris, you pointed them down, and you sponged them out.
So there was like an axle?
Yeah, right. There was a joint. It was collapsible, that the joints were movable. So Gemara Chasavar, why does he say it like this? Ksiksiv kikar umiksha. The Torah says about the menorah, kikar zav tar. It should be made of a kikar, which is an amount of gold, of pure gold. Yasa it's kala kelamayla. And it says umiksha vasisa menorah zav tar miksha teyasa. You should make it formed. It's going not just on the menorah, meaning the stems, but also the neiris as well. It was all formed from a single kikar of zav. So therefore, it couldn't have been separate pieces. It was flexible. So even the miboya hatava, but since even though it was one piece, so that would suggest that it was one solid piece, not flexible. But it needed to be cleaned out. He loved the prokim havi, like we said, if it got dirty, or every day it was cleaned out after in the morning after it went out. If it didn't have the ability to bend down, you wouldn't have been able to clean it out well. That means no matter how much water and how much you sponge out, if something is facing upwards, you're not going to be able to get the ash on the bottom. But if you turn it upside down and you keep smearing it, eventually everything will fall out. So that it was mamish hinged that it could go all the way down. Mesve. Kate said, Oisa, how would they do the cleaning out of the menorah? Misalkon, they would take it out. Umenicham ba'oil, they take the neiris and put it in the oil. Umakanchan b'svug, and they would clean out with the sponge. U'noisem ba'an shemen, they would put oil in it. Umadlika, and then they would they would put it back in its place, and then they would light it. So you see, this is a Tana that says that it was detachable, not that it was just hinged, but they said, Misalkon, you took it away and you brought it into a tent. So there's another Tana who says that it wasn't separated. The Tanya, that they didn't remove the nearest from its place. Do you have it? Boy, the boy in fact, the Gemara, that's not saying that it doesn't move it, that it's not able to move. It's saying they didn't move it. So that would seem to indicate exactly the opposite. That if they wanted to, they could. So it's still a stira to Armand Amr, Rav Huna, who said that it was attached. It wasn't able to be moved from the place. Not that they didn't move it from the place; that it wasn't able to be moved. Uman chachamim, Rebbe Lozer. Chayluk is of the Chacham, is Rebbe Lozer. The Tanya Belezer Rebbe Tzadik Omer. Kamin tashal zav hayel al gaba. There was a gold cap on top of the nair. Kshumay tiva, when they would clean it out, they would push. That was also on a hinge. This cap over the opening of the nair. They would push it up. And when they would put oil in it, they would close it. And the Mefarshim explained that there was a hole inside of it that they could put the oil in. The Tanya, the menorah and its lamps, the part that you put oil, all came from a single block of gold. But the spoons, the shovels, and the tongs that were used for cleaning it out, for cleaning it and filling it, they were not part of that same chunk of gold. Nechemia says that only the menorah itself, the stems, came from the single block, but the nearest that you put the oil in, that was detachable, as well as the spoons and the tongs. What's the machlekes? So Reb Nechemia is the man who says that it was detachable, and the Tanakama, Reb Elazar Reb Tzadok, was the Tana who says that it was part of the kikar. It wasn't detachable. What's the base of this machlekes? Baikra, the Tanya, kikar zav tar yasa oisai. The menorah was made out of a block of gold the size of a kikar, of pure gold, 24 karat gold. The mal menorah sheba min hakikar tells you it all comes from a single block. How do we know the nearest were also included in that single block? Includes all the kelim, including the nearest. Maybe that should include also the tongs and the spoons. I'm not sure exactly how that would work. That would also be attached to the menorah somehow, maybe like with a little gold chain. Like, we have I don't know if you guys, probably the newer menorahs don't have it, but back in my day, there was always like a little small oil thing attached to your menorah, which was useless. It was purely decorative. You don't even know what I'm talking about. They had like a little thing that could hold like a schnapps glazer full of oil.
Oh, yeah, the pitcher?
Little pitcher, a little mini
yeah,
pitcher.
yeah.
But it had no utility whatsoever, because you would have to fill it up each time you wanted to fill up one of the nearest. Anyway, so maybe they had something like that attached with a chain. Talmud Loimus, I'm trying to understand how it would work. Talmud Loima Oisa. The Torah says this Kolam Eila. The Torah says Oisa it, not including these accessories. Divrei Reb Nechemia. So l'chayra, this brisa is Reb Nechemia. He's saying that the neiros were included, but not the malchai chayo machteseh. But the earlier brisa, Reb Nechemia, I'm a menorah haisabah menakika. V'loy nereseh. I'm sorry. Yeah, he was a v'loy nereseh. Kasha Reb Nechemia de Reb Nechemia. Earlier, Reb Nechemia said the neiros were not, and here he's saying the menorahs and just the malchai chayo machteseh were excluded. It's two it's a machlokes about what the shita of Reb Nechemia is. Yeshua ben Kochaim, the Brisa continues. Rabbi Yeshua ben Karcha says, "Menorah ba menakika." He says the menorah, only the menorah itself, the stem came from that single block. He says not just the tongs and the spoons, the accessories weren't included, but the nearest also were. The Lamani Mekaimes Kol HaKeilim Ha'ela. With the Tanakama of Nehemiah, had learned from his Kol HaKeilim Ha'ela that includes the nearest. So Kalim shows up. So Dr. Kalim shows up. It's coming to tell you that the Malkachea are shows up. It's not coming to tell you the nearest, but it's coming to tell you that these that even though they're not included, they weren't part of that kikar, but they also were part of. They were both made of. They were also made out of gold. Practically zov behedjik siva. Basisas neres shiva vehelis neres aveheir al evek now. Then you should make the neres for the 7 neres for the menorah, and you should put on it the neres, and it should light up across from the Beisam from the kachik kachim. But and it says that that they were made out of zovtar. So what do you need this pasuk to tell you that the accessories were made out of zovtar? It's coming to tell you the coverings that we had mentioned over the nearest, that there was a little cover that they would open up when they cleaned it out and then cover it when they were putting in the oil. I might think, since they get blackened from the fire and they get ruined, you have to replace them. It doesn't have to be made of 24 karat gold. You could use, I don't know, 2 karat gold. Add some kind of golden alloy. It's not so expensive. Kamash Malon, they know it has to be made of zav tar, full-fledged gold. Chatzi lug shemen l'toida. We had said you needed the chatzi lug for the toida. Tanya, Rikiva Omer. Matam alem b'shem shnei pa'amim. The pasuk says by the toida. Imal toida yakrivenu v'hikriv al zevach ha'toida chalitz matzos belulos b'shemen. It says you use chales matzos. There was 3 types of there were 4 types of loaves with the toida. We've mentioned this a number of times. So one of them was chametz. The chametz one did not have any shemen. And then there were 3 types of matzos that were not chametz. That was the chalis matzos and rikike matzos, the thicker matzos and the thinner matzos. And then there was the revichim, the ones that were boiled. So the pasuk says, "Im al toida yakrivenu hikav al zevach hatoida chalis matzos belulus b'shemen." It says the chalis matzos says belulus b'shemen. Rikike matzos meshucham b'shemen. The rikike is smeared with shemen. It says meruvachas chalis belulus b'shemen, and the meruvachas belulus b'shemen. So it really says the 3 times. But at this point, we're only addressing the first 2. It says b'shemen, b'shemen. What do you have to say b'shemen? It could just say al zevach hatoida chalis matzos belulus. What else is it going to be belulus if not shemen? And meshuchan. So what does it have to say? All these b'shemens, shnei pa'am. A lug. I would think it needs 1 lug for each isar, for each type of matzahs. Achshav shekosov b'shemen. Havi really achar mi riboy ve'en riboy achar mi riboy elamayit miyatu hakosov l'chatzi lug. Since the Torah said shemen twice unnecessarily, so that's telling you it only needs a chatzi lug. Correct the Gemara. It's only 1 riboy. The first shemen it had to say. Only the second one is extra. It's not a riboy achar riboy. It's a single riboy. Ella ilu loy nema b'shemen kol ikar. Well, it says no. If it wouldn't have said shemen at all, he said I would say it defaults to the typical amount of 1 loig of shemen. If we wanted it to say just a loig shemen, it would have just not said anything. The first one is necessary because the first one wasn't necessary either. So therefore, it's a riboy achar riboy. Riboy achar riboy el lamayit because of l'chatzi look. That tells you it's only a chatzi look. Yachol yehi chatzi look zeh mischal l'shloisha minim l'chalos or kikan l'rachiva. I would think, thinking about it logically, if you have chatzi look, and you have to divide it. We said a chatzi lug. Each lug has 12 Oh, good morning. Welcome back with the 10. Uh, every hin has 6. That doesn't really make a difference. A chatzi lug would be divided up amongst the 3 different types of matzahs, of chalis. So you'd have 1/6, right? Is that right? A half divided in 3 is a 6th, right? 3/6. So each type of matzah, each type of challah, whatever they are, I keep forgetting what to call them. Each one of the challahs should need a 1/6 of a lug. It's now the 3rd shemen by Ravicha tells you Tamalem Riva shemen l'Ravicha. That's coming to be marba, an extra shemen by Ravicha. Haketzad maybe chatzi lug shemen v'tziu chatzi l'chalos urkikin v'chatzi l'Ravicha. It's not divided evenly amongst the 3 types of chalis, but rather the 2 types of matzahs, the non-Ravicha ones, get half, so they're getting half of the quarter. They're each getting an 1/8, and the Ravicha get the other quarter. Amalei Rebbe Elazar Azariah, Akiva and Mata Marba Kol Yom Kula b'Shemen Eini Shem Ela. He said you can make all your tricks, saying Shemen, you're dashing all the Shemens in all these convoluted ways to come up with your pshat that results that it's a chatzi lug, and you try to say that it's riba acharibui to tell you that it's instead of being a full lug, it's a chatzi lug, and then to divide it between the revuchin and the other kinds of chalas. El chatzi lug shemen l'toida, raviyas shemen l'nazir. This din of a chatzi lug shemen for a toida and raviyas shemen lug l'nazir v'acharas hayoyim shabei nida l'nida. The din of how you become a nida, a zava gedola, that a nida is only before someone becomes a zava gedola, when she had 11 days after she was a nida. During that time, if she's roya, she's a shemer shayim keneged yoyim, and then if it's 2 days, she has to a next level is zava katana. 3 days in a row, it's a zava gedola. But where does this all come from? Halacha l'moshe misinai. We just bring 3 things that are halacha l'moshe misinai, which includes the reviyah shemen for nazir, and the first one is the chatzi lug shemen l'toida. It's not learned out from these psukim at all. He says the shemen is just the Torah is explaining that they have to have shemen for all of them, and we learn it out from halacha l'moshe misinai. We said in the Mishnah, belug hayamoided l'chol ha-menachos. There was a lug for every mincha. Afilu mincha shall, the Mishnah said, afilu mincha shall samach esaron, noisel samach lug. Even if you have a mincha where a person decided to give 60 soin of flour, you give 1 lug for each saw. So for each isaron. So you have 60 lugin for the 60 Israelim. But the Mishnah brings there's only 1 lug for no matter how big the mincha is. The maximum it could be actually is 60. Shenam ala mincha v'loik shemen. Which is really a paraphrase of the pasuk. The pasuk says, "V'imdalhu ve'ein yadam asagas v'laka kavs echad asham l'tnubel chaper lavisaron solos echad below shemen lamincha v'loik shemen." Then the pasuk considers it goes on for loik shemen for the next carbon, but we darshan it as part of that. For the mincha, you have 1 loik shemen. That's the maximum absolute amount. That you mix an isaron mixed with the loik. That tells you that each isaron needs a lug. Like we said, the Tanakam of our Mishnah, Divrei Chacham. Reb Nechemia, Reb Eliezer, and they changed it on the side to Reb Elazar and Yaakov, who was the Tana of our Mishnah, who argued in our Mishnah. Like he quoted that we attach the word mincha to the loik shemen, that there's a maximum of a loik shemen for the mincha no matter what its size. Reb Nechemia, Reb Elazar and Yaakov, hayisaron beloig balav velug. My abdilay. What to do with the pasuk that the Chacham darshans that an isaron, each isaron gets a loy. Ahula gufa. The Kamar Rahman Alaisi Chad isaron. That's coming to tell you that you bring one isaron for the mitzayra. V'idach legufa lo tzarach. The Gali Rahman gab mitzayra asher gimel karbanis the gimel esrain. This is talking about the mitzayra ani. A mitzayra asher has to bring 3 karbanis, accompanied by 3 esrainim, 1 isaron for each carbon. Hacha the chad carbon, since the ani only brings 1 carbon, chad isaron. So by default, he'll have 1 isaron. We learn now from the asher. If the asher has a mincha of an isaron together with each of his 3 karbanis, the ani who brings 1 carbon has 1 isaron. So you don't need a pasuk. B'idach extra. The other Mama says no. We need it to tell you that the ani also brings 1 isaron. Since the Torah allows him to reduce from 3 animals to 1 animal, maybe he doesn't need a mincha at all. The other one says no, there's no such thing. It's that you wouldn't find that the Torah would reduce it and eliminate altogether the necessity of a mincha for a mitzvah. Now the other way around. Rabbanan hayla mincha v'loik shemen my abdilei. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov and Rabbi Nechemiah had learned from the juxtaposition of loik shemen with a mincha that there's a cap that you only bring a maximum of 1 isara, no matter how large. 1 loig, no matter how many mitzrayim your mincha is. Zaktamara hahu lemisnadav mincha. That's to come to tell you, as someone who gives a mincha, shel yivchas midavar hatan loig, that he shouldn't reduce it less than an amount that needs a loig. Well, my new isaron. It's coming to tell you that b'derech klal, no isaron could be less than a loig. It's not telling you the din that by a mitzayra, that it's not coming to tell you that no matter how many Yisroinim are, you always do a look, but rather it's coming to tell you that every carbon has to have the amount, like they said that you do 1 loik per isar, and you can never do less than an isar. He says you can learn out both things from it. It's telling you isar and v'loik sham, and it tells you both that you always have to have a minimum of isar, and also that the total amount is a loik. You give 1 loik no matter how big the mincha is. It's telling you both sides of the equation according to Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. It's telling you how much the minimum of the isaron and the maximum of the shemen. The Mishnah had ended off. Shisha lapar, you bring shisha lugin, which is half of a hin for a par, arba la'ayil, 4 for ayil, shloisha lekevesh, and 3 for a kevesh, 6 for a ox, 4 for a ram, and 3 for a lamb. Minalim, where do we know this from? The sibling of same chatzia hin yilapar should be half of a hin for a par. Utresa luge haven, and hin is 12 lugin. Chsiv Shem and Zayis hin. It says Shem and Zayis was a hin. Chsiv Shem and Mischas Chodesh Yeh Zeh Li L'Dairesechem. This should be the Shem and Mishcha for Dairis. That means when they did the Shem and Mishcha, they used a hin of oil. Zeh begematria Tresa having, and Zeh is 12. Gematria of 12, so that tells you there are 12 lugin in a hin. Shloisha, right? Because all the Torah says is half a hin and a third of a hin and a quarter of a hin. So we have to have a source that the hin has 12 lugin to tell you this, to how we get to 6, 4, and 3 from half, a third, and a quarter. Shloisha mechsel menorah chatzi lug l'chol ner. We said there were 3.5 lugin for the menorah, with a chatzi lug for each ner. Minohani mili. Where does this come from? The Tanur Rabbanan. Me'erev boika. Tein lemidas shtei delekas v'lekas me'erev boika. Torah tells you should put enough oil in the menorah that it should last from the night till the morning. Davarach. I mean, Erev Boiker. So it's still how do we know that's a hapalug? We're going to get to that. Davaracha Mered Boiker. The Torah says from night till morning. Ein l'chol avodah sheksher me'ered Boiker elazu lova. Rashi says, even though the menorah is supposed to be lit before nightfall, this is a unique case that if it wasn't lit or if they neglected to light it, they could still light it at night. Every other avodah, like shchita and zrika, it has to be done by day, and if you miss doing it by day, you got to wait for the next day, or you can't do it the next day. Once you did shchita, you can't do zrika. It becomes asabelina. But this you're allowed to do all night. Now we're finally getting to a teretz. They were mashayir that it takes. They actually tested it out, and it takes one half of a lug in the nair to light it from evening to the morning. Some people say that they started with a full lug, or they started with a hin. They started with a huge amount, and they kept on testing it till they figured out what was the minimum amount that could last a whole night. Once they started from a small amount, started with a teaspoon, and then went up to a tablespoon, and then to a tenth of a lug, and finally they got up to a half a lug. From the one that said they started from less and they added more, they tested it in a way that used the least amount of oil to come to the proper conclusion. They said, you start from the top. Since it's the Beis HaMikdash, we don't do things in a cheap way. So this is like when you talk to your wife about how much we should spend on something. If you're talking about a car, she'll tell you, Chasa Alma Ma'anisha Yisrael. But if you're talking about Sheitel, that'll be Einanias B'Makom Ashiris. Oh, we'll take that. We can edit it out. So let's quickly see. I'll let you get to davening on time. The first day back.
Thank you. Have a good day.
Take care. Have a good day.